everyone. Welcome again to Consciousness Rising Zimbabwe and Beyond. My name is Tanja Norris. I'll be your host today. And as you know, this is a platform where we introduce people from different walks of life, people that offer community projects that are doing great things within their community. Also people that I would say on the fringe science, on the consciousness side of life, which is why it's called Consciousness Rising. Anyway, as we sit here in 2020, wondering what on earth is going on, what is all the craziness about, where did it start, is it ever going to end, how will it end? We all sit and wish we had a crystal ball that we could just look into the future and see what's going on. Anyway, today I have with me somebody who is going to shed some light on all of those topics for us, because she's a very experienced numerologist, and her name is Tanja Komen. And Tanja is not only a numerologist, but she's also a yoga teacher and an Ayurvedic practitioner since 2006. And then I know numerology she's been doing for many, many years. So I think this is going to be quite enthralling. Welcome, Tanja.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the interview on Consciousness Rising. I've been following the YouTube videos, and it's just been so nice to be exposed to all these different alternative therapies and everything in Zim. So yeah, thank you very much, Tanja. Yeah, so I've been, I thought I'd give a bit of background on why I even actually started the study of numerology. I made the decision to study the various codes I work with back in 2008, when I had a reading myself with this intuitive numerologist, Athele Oosterbroek. I was just blown away by what came out of this reading, you know, the confronting truths that came out of it. But as a result, a lot of self-acceptance, acceptance of the self, and also acceptance, well, self-knowledge actually, that I came away with. And I just thought, wow, I've just got to know more about this. You know, I've always been into figures myself, and I enjoy maths. So, yeah, and I'm a researcher myself, so I just wanted to know more. So under the guidance of Athele, a couple of months after my reading, I started studying with her. And first, as I said to you, I use the word numerology as a bit of a loose term, because it's different codes that you're born into, that based on your birth date, that I work with. So I first started studying codes pertinent to the self, and then my last studies in the last 6 years or so have been looking at the synergies of different codes, where I add your code to the code of the day, or the code of someone else, and we see how that construct works. So yes, so after 10 years or over a decade now with my wonderful mentor, I'm able to offer a similar type of guidance to clients. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also for it's pertinent. People should note that numbers play such an integral part of our lives, not just in the obvious things like measurements and timekeeping and calendars and things like that. They have, for eons of time, going right back to the ancients, had a very mystical connotation to them, or connotation to them.
Yeah.
You know, all the ancients used it in their religions. We look at it in the Kabbalah, and is it called Gematria, where they replace words with numbers. So, and even in the Bible, you know, there's a very mystical component to some of those numbers. Pertinent ones, say like 40 keeps coming up over and over again.
Yeah.
So, and also 12 keeps coming up over and over again. And also, to me, maths and numbers, it's like a universal language, isn't it? Because even if you look underneath music, it's all about mathematical codes.
Yes. Yes.
Which is why we get that Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah. So there's codes for everything, you know. So our date of birth is a time frame or a reference of energetic influences with particular characteristics in their essences. Each number has a duality. It has a compressed expression, and it has an expanded expression. So when we're born into that energetic construct. So, much in the same way as we're influenced by the waxing and the waning of the moon, we're influenced by the configuration of the planets that we chose to incarnate, how the planets were, and the birth date we chose to incarnate into. So, that incarnation imprints on us in a particular way. So, the way we choose our family heritage, for the genetic encoding that we get, the environmental factors that we're born into, and the date of birth, we choose all of those for a set of characteristics through which we can, play out our lives and the intricacies of our lives and our intentions for this lifetime. So, so when so I work on those codes, highlighting how we are in a compressed state, in a shadow self, or in a stressed fashion, and what our potential is in a light fashion and expanded way of living. As a person with a high level of self-mastery, for example, will kind of oscillate in the center there, but looking at your contracted, your compressed state of being and working it and not running away from it and accepting it, that's where we get our most growth and most enlightenment.
So what you are calling compressed could also be the shadow or the dark side.
Yes, exactly. And, we can't have the shadow without the light, and we can't experience the light without the shadows. So, and that goes with our own characteristics during this lifetime.
And it doesn't just work on the personal human level. It can also work for events, for countries, for continents. It works for the whole planet. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And
this is what I wanted you to tell us, is with all the madness going on in 2020, what is that all about? And also, if you can give us some insight into what's going to happen in 2021. And I think, if you give us that for the globe, and then maybe we can look at what it also means specifically for us here in Zimbabwe.
In Zimbabwe, yeah, great. So 2020, that adds up to a number 4, okay? So we're in our 4th year, and it works in 9-year cycles. The energies of that year are highest in March and in September. And of course, there is that crossover, the energies of the year to come start generating 3 months prior to the end. So there is that layover, but, 1st of January, there it is, So keeping that in mind, 2020 being a 4-year, it's a year to be, it's an opportunity to be tested on every facet of our stuff. And every aspect of our lives. It's a year to deal with truths and any of those truths that you've been sweeping under the carpet or whatever. This year they're going to just come right at you, and it's time to deal with them. It's a year when something either catalytic happens, or it generally is catalytic, because facing a truth, and whether it's catalytic and chaotic, you are going to shift out of that paradigm and go onto a new path. So healing takes place in this 2020. So all the chaos that's going on at the moment especially worldwide with the COVID and everything, healing is going to be the end result of this. Stuff just really has to change universally right now. Depending on how it's treated or how it's approached the year, it can be very chaotic, which is what we're seeing in a lot of places as well with this COVID management. Some countries are actually managing it in a way more peaceful fashion than other countries. Depending on how it's approached or avoided, any of the energies of that year would be monitored by that way. 2020 is also a year where truth and integrity are highlighted. As I was saying earlier, you can't make lies anymore, So, and you can see with governments and, all sorts of truths are coming up to the surface that need to be dealt with. So, we just got to ride the chaos, but know that also, healing will generate as a result of all this change, because it's definitely a year to shift out of a paradigm.
Can all of that be achieved in 1 year? Or is it going to take a few years for all of that to come out and settle?
Well, going into 2021 now, 2021, that will be a 5-year. And in the 5-year, it's all about the winds of change. Okay, so all the chaos and everything is going to erupt and all this, to force us to shift out of this paradigm into this more expansive way of being next year. There'll be more freedom. We have to allow that expansion next year. Otherwise, we'll feel trapped, and that can be a very intense energy. So, there has to be movement, there has to be change, there has to be flow in the 5th year. If there isn't that expansion, then a lot of stress comes from that. So we need to let go and go with the flow. In the 5th year, it's also a lot about reanalyzing and rethinking, and we've kind of moved out of the heart and now really into the head. It's definitely not an emotional period in our 5th year university. It can be quite a rebellious period where no one wants to follow any kind of rule anywhere and really just be very undisciplined, actually. It can also be a very busy year. There's going to be a lot of juggling around and finding your place and, not really settling as such in the 5th year.
Okay.
There's a lot of choices in the 5th year, so we're coming to a crossroads. So all the chaos and then the crossroads next year and then we'll move, forward from those crossroads. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it's promising to be still exciting, but would you say maybe a little bit less violent or maybe more violent?
No, I would say this year will have a lot more drama. So there's more violence and death and craziness that in your 4th year, because the 4 is all about drama and showing the truth and bringing the truth out and justice want to be made and
Okay, and so as it is for the world, then does all of that apply to us here in Zimbabwe, or is there something unique about us that could make a difference?
Oh, so well, obviously Zimbabwe has its own birth date. So the calculation I've used for our Zimbabwe birth date is obviously the 18th of April 1980. This is a very intense code that Zimbabwe has. It's like a groundbreaking code. The birth of Zimbabwe was like a healing for Zimbabwe, and it was a brand new thing for Zimbabwe. We'd shift out of the paradigm of suppression, and now we were into the paradigm of this freedom now and change. But I mean, it's such an intense code because it exists of not many numbers. So when you have a number in one of these matrices we work out that's repeated in the code, the energies are very, very intense. So with keeping that in mind, Zimbabwe doesn't follow rules. It's like ahead of its time. It doesn't want to be trapped in a box. With it comes a hell of a lot of irresponsibility, nobody wanting to take responsibility for anything that goes on. It's it has the idea that it's authentic and it's got structure and it's sound and it's a disciplined, country, and that is based on reality. But then we swing to the duality of that energy and we see that Zim, with all that sound, discipline and everything, is completely the opposite. So what we have in reality is this unbelievably chaotic country. The left hand doesn't know what the right is saying most of the time. There's always this pushing of boundaries and no boundaries. And, a law is made today and then it's changed tomorrow. And, so it's got this, it's trying to have the structure, but it's completely unmanageable, actually. It's unbelievable it's still functioning, but what keeps us still functioning with all of this unmanageable chaos that goes on is we underpinned with a number 8. And the number 8 is a number that relates to solidity and longevity and resilience. So because we underpinned with this number, we have this resilience to carry on with this chaos, but looking from the outside world, I mean, how are we still alive? And it's because we underpinned with that strength. And it's always on the brink of collapse, and on the brink of finality, and then it sort of carries on again. And there's this unbelievable forgiveness that goes on between the people. There are these heinous crimes being committed and everything and dreadful unfairness going on. But then at the same time, there's this sort of like forgiveness and let's carry on with the whole thing. Never really this end to it all. So it just kind of like rolls over again. It's also got these numbers which are brilliant at taking risks, I mean, Zimbabwe thinks out of the box. It's ahead of its time. It just says what it wants. It basically does what it wants, and it just wants to like take it to the nth of the boundary and bust the rules, And so, in an expanded form, I mean, Zimbabwe has this exceptional level of individuality, and this intelligence of revolution, really, I mean, Zimbabwe could actually show the world how we could be way ahead of our time and working with the soil and, because of that earth number 8 I was talking about and that solidity, Zimbabwe could show the world stuff. It's got the potential and the magic. And because of that risk-taking potential, we could actually go amazing places. But because we've got those numbers in that negative, the compressed place, it's just outrageous and anything goes. And also we like the queen of self-denial. We know that there's all these truths out there. We know that there's this corruption and this cheating and lying and going on. But yet, it's sort of just like carries on and we stay in this denial that we're actually a wonderful nation. And that's what's going on is like being accepted,
That's right. Is there any end to it though? I mean, you talk about those codes that were decided in 1980. Can it change? Is there any end to it? Is there light at the end of the tunnel, or will it always be like that?
No, well, I mean, like, as I say, Zimbabwe has this, and I mean, the wonderful expanded form of Zim is if everyone was like, okay, let's be truthful. Let's have justice. Let's have integrity and fairness. If we were operating from our light, expanded part of our code, wow. But as I said to you earlier, everything moves in 9-year cycles. So Zimbabwe is in its now 8th year. which is now coming to the end of that cycle.
Okay.
So the 8th year is all about getting finality. And let me just see where I wrote that number. Yeah, the 8th year is about getting finality. So, you know, of course, there's all this political unrest that we're having at the moment because people are really trying now to get finality. I can hop back to the code of particularly today, which we can look at just now. But in the 8th year, it's a time to deal with earthly matters of the soil. I mean, it's interesting. I saw on the news the other day that farmers were now going to be compensated for land, and it's time to get finality on stuff and time to work out the earthly matters in Zimbabwe and the money matters. You know, money matters, earthly matters, material matters. We need to sort this out. We need to, you know, get to grips with all the elements that are needing closure. And, you know, people, I think in this year are really going to try to get to grips to have that closure. So, you know, in the 8th year, it's definitely a time to kill off unwanted behavior and behavioral patterns, you know. So we've got the energy behind us to kill off all this corruption and, you know, these behavior patterns that are just destroying us. So, you know, because then, of course, they're not healthy. It's not healthy for the people. So, you know, it would be wonderful if we could get into our expanded self, use that energy to kill off these patterns and kind of, you know, come to the end. Because in 2021 for Zimbabwe, we're coming into in the 9th year now, which is the end of the cycle, you know. It'll be tying up any loose ends that we haven't let go of in 2020. And it's really a time to let go of everything, because it's a fresh new beginning in 2022, you know, in our first year of the cycle. So, you know, we really need to bust out of this paradigm and be fresh for our next 9-year cycle. Next year, in the 9th year for Zimbabwe, it could be an intensely creative year. You know, anything goes in the 9th year, because it's all the energies of the numbers are thrown into a 9. It's sort of like the year where there's a void. So anything can emanate from the void. Again, how it's approached is going to obviously give you your result on what emanates out of that void. But I always say in the 9th year, like, it's time to, you know, take a step back and look at it from a different perspective and take parts that you want to carry into your next 9-year cycle, which would be 2021, our new fresh start, you know. In the 9th year as well, there are many opportunities will come up for us to have forgiveness and compassion for others, and to really, you know, forgive all of the stuff from the last 9-year cycle. So,
right.
Yeah, we're going into a very creative, open, anything can happen. The potential is huge in 2021. Yeah.
Okay. But as it is right now, the energies are supporting us. The energies of the 8 are supporting us now to find ourselves, to bring out, to expose, and all of that. Is that right?
And to kill off stuff that doesn't work for us.
That's not working. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you can say? We're recording this on the 31st of July. So have you got anything to say about what is going on today, or is it a powerful day? Is it not? Of
course, I had to look at the day today with, you know, the stayaways and what have you. You know, today is about highlighting a lot of truth. You know, just looking at 37 July 2020, not adding it to Zimbabwe on its own. Because when you look at the synergies, you've got to look at the numbers playing into that synergy, you see. So, you know, it's a day for, there's a lot of fate and a day of judgment, and there could be some serious injured bodies today, just with the drama of the day. There's like mercenary, there's violence, there's aggression in this day. When I add the code of today to the code of Zimbabwe, and the synergy, it's there's the struggle to speak up the truth. And you know, and I think that's what's happening. People aren't really able to speak up the truth. They're just getting squashed with violence. There is a huge potential for a lot of death today. You know, the code is, I mean, it operates with finality and violence and war and justice. So, you know, there could be a hell of a lot of chaos today, as we're trying to get that voice, or trying to speak up the truth. You know, the potential is quite emotional, and yeah, there can be a lot of chaos today.
But I mean, and all of that is really just a probability, because even if they, like, say the protests are squashed and there isn't that death, you know, and they've avoided, you know, all of that violence, but the energy behind the intention of the day has still been noted and still been highlighted.
Yes, and it'll still be the struggle to speak up the truth. You know, I mean, unfortunately, you know, the code is kind of weighted with that emotion. You know, so yeah, it's probably later in the day it will come out. You know, the end of the day, this will be there.
That's right.
But it's a day to get real, and it's a day for, you know, to people look at for people to look at reality today. You know, and I think people are fed up, you know, so that kind of raging, wanting to war, and we want to end, and we want change, and we want, you know, there's this aggravation there. So, you know, that aggro could easily be met with violence. This code.
Anyway, well, let's see by the end of the day what unfolds. Hopefully not. You know, hopefully not all the violence and all of that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's a good look at the world. It's a good look at Zimbabwe for this year and 2020 and 2022. What I'm just curious about, have you done any work on the most controversial figure on the planet today, as you know, is Donald Trump? Have you or your colleagues done any kind of investigation or looking at his numbers to see what on earth is all that about?
Yes, I mean, obviously, I mean, as a coder, you know, when anyone does something on the TV or on the news, there's this immediate look online. What is this birth date? Let's see how this is playing out. So Trump is such a controversial figure that, you know, born on the 14th of June, he is 1946. It's really fun. I mean, you have to actually laugh a little bit at this. I mean, Trump, he just speaks about whatever is expedient. He says the most inappropriate things. He's and he gets all, when he gets all worked up, he just starts to speak all these untruths and all this rubbish, really. He thinks alternatively, which is, you know, why he shakes people up. I mean, he's definitely been put onto this earth to shake things up and bust. I mean, I think America's busting out of the paradigm it was ever in, you know, because of him.
Would you think that is a good thing?
Yeah, I think in a year of change, we all need change. I'm not sure, you know, Trump with this code, he does things very much for himself as well, and for to feather that nest of his and to earn money for him and for his family. You know, like almost that's he's motivated by that. Like his aspiration is, how can I get more dollars for me and for my family? His code is very much about me and my family and the nest of his family. He's power hungry, and the fame and everything is important to him. So it's almost like, how much can I get for me? He's got like no ethics and morals. It's never enough. He's got this this 8 in the child, which is the position in the coding, which means he can, it's just more and not enough for me and blah blah blah, and what about me? And when he gets into a compressed place.
But I mean, that's exactly, it's exactly the behavior that he's using, because it's all about America first. America's mine. It's all about us and me and my tribe.
And so
that playing out.
So I mean, like, he's at the top of it. Is he thinking about the other people, or just thinking about him and his family and the people tight? I mean, he's got this winning personality because, in essence, he's got this arrogance and this leadership and this, he can just say what he wants. And, so, people are quite like, or maybe taken by him, or, hoodwinked by that kind of leadership essence that he has. He likes to come across that he's being humanitarian, with his campaigns, on the underdog. I'll bring jobs to everybody, and so he uses the underdog and uses that humanitarian little number that he has, that he's going to give money to everybody. But and on a certain level he's very convincing. But he fires people up, into believing what he has to say. And, so he has that engaging thing, which is, I think, how he got there, because he hasn't really got credentials in any way, or credentials to be a politician.
I think it's refreshing, because I don't know what good politicians do. I think politicians do exactly what you've said. They'll promise the earth, but there's never any substance to their promises. They never do anything. And I think that's just the nature of politicians. Yeah. And so, I think it's refreshing, actually, that he's not a politician. What I was just wondering, it is now coming into this election. I don't know, what year is he in? Is it looking good for him or not so good?
So he is in a 6th year. So a 6th year is, it's all matters of the heart, which is why, he sometimes comes out with these emotional matters of speaking, but the 6 is all about manipulation. So he may use his manipulation, and he may be able to manipulate and charm his way back in his 6th year. So we'll just see how he comes out with that. And he's definitely going to be using the humanitarian. The 6 is all about humanitarian and creating peace and stuff. So definitely using that as a campaign for him.
So it actually, numerologically, this is a good year for him to be running for president.
He'll be engaging the people. And engaging that charm to because he knows how to engage that charm, and so he might hoodwink them, or he might drum up supporters in that way.
Oh well, that's very interesting. I think. Sorry, carry on.
No, it can carry on forever, because now I need to add up the independence of America and add it to Trump. And so
and also and the opposition, and what are the what are the numbers of opposition? Yeah. I know it can go on and on.
I'm always.
So anyway, Tanja, thank you so much for joining us today. And I think that was pretty insightful. I think it possibly has given some people some hope, which is what we all desperately need. Not just for the country, but for the whole planet and the pandemic and, you know, all those things going on.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly get you back because you've got so many other things to talk about. The Ayurvedic practice, you know, I mean,
Yes,
that's a big
thanks.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very useful thing as well, because I also feel that we should be using a lot of what is natural, you know, just to build up our immune systems right now,
Yes,
you know, and
exactly.
things like that. So, and I'm sure that in your Ayurvedic practice, they have a lot of remedies, natural remedies for immune systems.
Yes, and also, you know, I mean, I always say keep your food as colorful as you can and as fresh as you possibly can, because, you know, a food that has flown over the ocean has certainly got a lot less energy and prana than the food picked from your back garden.
Okay, so on that note, I think we're going to have to pack it up. So thank you once again for joining us.
Great. Thank you, Tanja.
Of course, to everybody else, please like it, share it, spread it around, let people know that there is a mystical side to what's going on in Zim and also on the planet, and they might find that pretty enthralling. I'll see you all next week and have a great week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.